download the revision guides which accompany these videos, head over to www.mrbruff.com.
Hello and welcome to this video where I analyse Act 2, Scene 3 of William Shakespeare's Macbeth. This scene can be interpreted in a number of ways, but either way, the use of language and structure is very important. Firstly, it's often described as a bit of comic relief, and we all know that it's been pretty dark up until this point, so it seems that Shakespeare just wants to lighten the mood. But you could argue, of course, that Shakespeare's trying to release the tension he's built up over the previous scenes, and especially in light of the scenes immediately before. Scenes of comic relief were traditionally there in lots of plays so as to give the audience something to laugh at before again building up the tension in the play. It's questionable, however, as to why Shakespeare would want to do this. He's just spent the previous act and scenes carefully building up the tension, so it wouldn't make a great deal of sense to introduce humour here. However, there is much that the drunk porter says in this scene that reflects the actual events on the other side of the gate. The images he uses and the themes of his speech are ones we see often throughout the play. The porter mentions a number of events and characters, all of which would have been familiar to Shakespeare's audience, as they were current events at the time. The common thread between them all is that the characters in the stories he tells committed deeds that would condemn them to hell. First, there is the story of the farmer, who keeps all his grain to himself when other people are starving because he thinks it will make it more valuable and he'll get a better price for it. The next harvest, however, is plentiful and the price of his grain plummets and ruins him. The next character is the equivocator, and this is interesting because it relates to the theme of truth and deception in the play. This part of the play could refer to an actual equivocator, Father Garnet, who was involved in the gunpowder plot and was tried for treason. He told half-truths and attempted to get out of trouble through his use of clever language, but was, however, hanged for perjury, which is where you lie under oath. The porter says you can't equivocate your way into heaven, and in this case, out of hell. After the porter exits, we are met with Macbeth, who's had time to wash his hands and change his clothes. There's an interesting detail in both his language and structure here. When speaking with Macduff and Lennox, Macbeth responds in short, brief sentences. This is a very strong contrast with the Macbeth we've met so far, who speaks in great long monologues and soliloquies using language that is heavy with imagery, metaphor, symbolism. But now, however, we have Macbeth saying, "Good morrow, both, not yet, I'll bring you to him." These very short, simple sentences when he's asked questions. Shakespeare's using Macbeth's language as a reflection of his state of mind. In all his speech here, he must be very careful about what he says. He must either equivocate or lie outright, and thus his speech becomes slow, brief, and thought out. It's only after the discovery of Duncan's body that he can speak naturally again. And in an interesting way, there's an interpretation here that Macbeth's words and feelings in the aftermath of the discovery are the only time in the whole play when he's not hiding how he feels or trying to deceive anyone. He says, "Had I but died an hour before this chance, I had lived a blessed time." That's completely true. Up until the point where he murders Duncan, he's living a blessed life. He's respected, well looked after, and happy. From this point on, however, he is doomed. The murder of the grooms or the two servants is interesting too. Macbeth very eloquently describes why he did it, and it makes a departure from the original plan. As he said in Act 1, committing murder creates more bloodshed. He's now murdered 3 people where the plan involved just 1. His defence of this appears thought out rather than impulsive, and there's a very interesting shift in this scene between Lady Macbeth and her husband. For the first time, Macbeth seems to be the one in control and creating practical solutions to problems, while Lady Macbeth appears to give in to her emotions and, of course, ultimately faints.